So hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining us today. Today in the big interview we have Keith Marriott joining us. Keith is the golf professional, the exclusive club in Geneva, and he is also the current Swiss PGA president. Good morning, Keith. Thank you for coming on the show.
Good morning, Adam. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. Thank you very much. Big interview today. That means I've got lots of questions for you. We're going to grill you.
I thought you would, Adam. I didn't think of anything else, that's for sure.
Ideally, the idea of the channel is to give coaches as much information and as help as possible in terms of building their coaching business, and also to tap into the minds of experienced coaches like yourself. And
Right.
if there's people watching today that may be just beginning their coaching journey, that they can grab some nuggets from you on certain aspects.
Definitely. Excellent.
I just want to start today, Keith, with the current COVID situation. Obviously, it affects you both as a golf professional, but also as the president of the Swiss PGA, enormous responsibility and a difficult time for the association. What are the lessons that a golf professional can take from this current COVID-19 circumstances?
Well, I think, firstly, if I go on a personal level on my business side, I think it was, the start was very, very extreme. You know, no one knew what was going on, and then, and you're isolated from your family, from your loved ones. So I think personally that threw us into a bit of a kilter, not, within ourselves. And then just to sort of jump towards the end of the season where, and obviously golf closed down. And from that point of view, the association, we were super engaged in just trying to make sure that we got those governmental aspects organized for our self-employed guys. And I think if you're working in Switzerland, I think we can, or within the Swiss golf scene, we can put our hands up and say we were very well looked after compared to a lot of our other pros in other countries. I felt that it's something that I learned myself from that was being tremendously well organized, having a great connection and collaboration with my bookkeeper, that he was informed and informing me with all the potential opportunities or things that I could do to try and get some sort of security. So that was from that. And then jumping on that, the association, I must say, did a great job. The office were full on sending out memos. And as soon as we were lobbying right from the word go to try and get things to open quicker, then it became quite clear that this was more than just about ourselves, that it was a pandemic that was going worldwide. And then suddenly you had to step back and say, hang on, it really isn't just about me. And one of my biggest takeouts from 2020 is that it was not just about me. It was a hold, and then came back obviously even stronger. We can talk about that in a moment. I just felt that it was about the individuals. I was talking to a lot of our members that were struggling, and hopefully we were able to put them in the right direction, that they could get some sort of financial assistance or at least some sort of help, and whether it was from the club or whether it was from the government. Personally, I think the government stepped up to the mark tremendously.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, obviously, as a member of the PGA, I thought the communication to the pros was absolutely fantastic. You know, we were updated on a weekly basis of what the current situation was, and that was really important because, like you said, everybody was a little bit in the dark and a little bit like, what do we do? So that was great.
Yeah, I think coming out of it, what we saw then in the end of 2020 and when the courses opened was the actual benefits and the growth of golf. I mean, I'm really into the mental well-being and physical well-being that this sport gives, based on the fact that, elite golf is probably 1-2% of our golfing public. So 98% of them are just out there to try and enjoy what's a challenging game and physically probably the hardest game out there. But we saw that golf was filling an awful lot of needs in that aspect of getting your head together, connecting with nature, getting out there. Perhaps although social distancing didn't enable us to perhaps communicate with our friends as much as we wanted, but golf itself gave us gave us a super challenge. It's like doing an extremely difficult crossword puzzle, frustrating, but at the end of the day, you realize, wow, I've just done something for the gray matter upstairs. And I think that was something that's come out of it, the huge benefits of mental well-being and physical well-being that the game of golf can offer to a broad section of society, and inclusive to any type of society. And I think that's definitely from us as an association where we've got to look into.
Have you had any feedback from other golf professionals, friends, colleagues, on how they've had to adjust their business for COVID, or you know, how they're going to set up their business differently to sort of, you know, allow for pandemics like this? Or is it kind of just like, okay, eventually we'll come out the back end of it and things will get back to normal?
Yeah, I've had lots of conversations, Adam, like with yourself, and I think the new normal is not going to be normal. And you know, if we are looking down the road, there are certain aspects of the game probably that won't come back, and not necessarily negative. And I think the future is going to be a challenge. But I've noticed that most of the golf pros, by the nature of how we are, our job, creating your own business, most of us are self-employed. So you've got to be thinking on the spot. And I must say, I've seen that a lot of guys are very innovative. As you've been following yourself, the awareness on the social media platforms, guys doing their different online businesses. So I think that a few have felt it challenging. I think the guys who perhaps hadn't moved with the times, you know, got stuck in 1980, then suddenly this hit them, and their agenda was always the same, and they hadn't really challenged. Perhaps they hadn't been coming to the Fed days or evolving into what we would call now it's quite clearly it's so different now than it was 20 years ago. And I don't know who it was, but that wonderful saying, I think, about coaching, if you're coaching the same way you did 5 years ago, I think you have to sit in the corner and question yourself.
That's right,
and probably I would even evolve that as a golf professional as a whole, saying if I am going about my business the same way as I did, then I have to question myself. And I think that's what's inspiring about what you're doing, is making us think about where we are now and where we are going, and not particularly hanging with one leg back in 1980.
Just on that point, what skills do you think a modern golf professional would need today that he didn't need 20 years ago? What are the different skill sets in terms of the entire business? Obviously, coaching,
Yeah.
you know, we understand the skills.
I guess the biggest challenge for me personally was coming through the classical English apprenticeship and working over there, was a golfer would approach me when he needed a fix.
Right.
Something was wrong with his golf game. He approached me. He sought me out. He came to me on the range, and okay, you did the classical walk by. And if someone sort of looked at you with a sad look, you'd perhaps venture into them. What's definitely changed now is we are a very important part of their journey, and it's for us to engage with them. It's not to wait. And that's probably been my biggest challenge, or my biggest turnaround, is the fact that it's about me engaging with them and not them engaging with me. It's about me suggesting to that client a pathway of involvement with us together as a team, as opposed to me just sitting back and nodding as they come off the 18th green. Do you need one now? You know, and it's
So being more
it's evolved.
proactive.
Absolutely, and definitely going to the client as opposed to the and as we were doing now over this winter period or this COVID period, is staying in connection, constant connection with my client database, to asking them how they're doing, and not just about their golf game. So that engagement with the client, much more than just about his grip and his slice.
So you think that going forward, a professional needs to understand almost today relationship building and relationship management with the customer, rather than just the everyday, you know, come to me when you need me kind of. That's what you'd say was changed.
100%, Adam. 100%.
Yeah. Which goes head to head with, like, all businesses need to do that, don't they? So it's just aligning itself really with all businesses. If any other business doesn't manage its customer base and doesn't build long-term relationships with its customers, they will look elsewhere.
100%, Adam. We're in the service industry, and that's without undeniable, isn't it? We're in the service industry.
How has your own coaching changed over the last 20 years to keep a modern approach to the game? Because we know that the golf coaching has evolved. We know we have amazing new technologies now that we didn't even have when I started 15 years ago. And how is your own personal coaching kept up? How do you keep each season coming out motivated and bringing your customers the real, modern latest sort of technologies and knowledge?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons I got involved with the PGA initially, was the fact that I found that the PGA was doing so much to help the pros in their further education. So it was always there. And then with the idea or the mission to try and improve what we're giving to the pros. So basically it was, I've been fascinated by two things: by the way the game has been developing, but I'm also very curious about individuals. And so right from the word go, I was very fortunate doing my apprenticeship with Bill Cox OBE, who was a very well thought of professional back in the day. And then I then followed up with David Haslam, who was also a very charismatic marketing, very personable type of professional. So those two sort of made me inquisitive in sorting out for myself why is that particular coach special, and what is happening now in 1980, 1990, 2000. So that was a personal thing, but I appreciate not everyone's got that. When you have families, there are other things you need to do. I was actually curious by nature. So, but then just going back to your question, so my enjoyment is actually going down the road of what's new. I find that exciting and enjoyable. So I've always not reinvented myself each year, but I've always realized I've had to deliver something new to my client. If I was the same old hairdresser just doing the blue rinse all day, I'm not gonna increase my client base on that one. So it's always a question of the business, meeting the demands of the business, but also a curiosity from my own personal side.
So you've always been passionate about learning the latest technologies, the latest knowledge, and then you've been able to share that then with your customers.
Share it and sort of sift through it. I mean, what I'm going through a really exciting thing at the moment, with starting my career in the John Jacobses of the world, the Tommy Hortons, and all of these people, and Bob Torrance, who are incredibly simplistic, and then being sort of going on this wave of technology, your Jim Flick square to square and all that stuff, and then evolving into where we've got all these different methods and different models, which each of them work. And then coming back now, and if I look into those two types of education that are about, so you have your webinars, which are structured education with overhead projections of data and all of this. And then you have this other side, which is coming through on social media, more the conversation aspect. And that conversational aspect enables me, and that's where I've got this curiosity, is to understand or see a little bit more about the personality of the guy who's actually doing this extremely complicated coaching or elite coaching. And I see that there's a lot of simplification happening now, so we're almost going back, but with a lot of
things.
Exactly, with a lot of data in the background and understanding things, and acknowledging that if it can be measured, it's factual, and if you can measure it, it's better than guesswork and all of this. But then when you step out in front of that client, it's offering the most simplest, and I really admire the way that these guys, if I'm a bit of a Sean Foley fan, the way he talks on social media, his philosophical approach to the game, and why fix it if it's not broken, and punctuality above form. Let's not be fixated with how pretty it is, but does it work, and am I giving that person enjoyment? So that's
it's almost done a full circle, hasn't it? Because I know, back in the old days, it was more, does it work, rather than how beautiful does it look.
If
you think of the swings from the 70s and 80s, it wasn't about how it looked, it was about how it worked.
Gosh.
And then I was 90s, where it's all about how it looks.
Yes, 100%. And I was listening to a lovely podcast of Luke Donald, and he was just saying how he hadn't thought about his swing and he didn't get coached, and he would just go on the driving range and play all different shots, you know, which is now what we're putting out there, as you know, we're get in the ugly zone and do all this. And there, you know, this young boy, and you can remember that growing up in the UK, you'd stick yourself behind a tree and try to to the left of the tree, to the right of the tree. Today, that's high-tech coaching.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was something, you know, it's very interesting.
Just now from you know, you've been at how long have you been at Geneva, Keith? You've been there a long time.
I've been now 12. This is my 12th year in Geneva.
12th season, yeah. And how would you say now? What do members, golf club members, expect from their golf professionals today that differs from the past? Is there a different expectation from your golf professional today than there was, you know, 12 years ago or 20 years ago?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's going back to what I just said. You've got to. That's a great question. I think it's where a lot of our pros have to rethink sometimes, you know, and I know a lot of people find it very easy to be this accompaniment of that person. You know, you're on a journey, and I think that's, whereas, as I said previously, I used to just teach someone who came, hey, I've got a slice, can you help me? Okay, let's try and do this. Or I'm not happy with this. Let's go and do that. And today it's the holistic approach of following that person, creating a pathway, and going with that person on the journey and just accompanying them. And sometimes it's, you know, just sitting down, having a chat with them, or having a coffee with them. But it's far more involved than just really fixing a grip, isn't it? You know, and at Geneva, that's definitely what they expect from us, is this: you are there and you're looking after your client, and you're making that person have an engagement with the club, the whole aspect of the club, and you're helping him to enjoy that experience and to be happy in that experience, you know, as much as possible.
So members today understand that it's a sort of a long-term relationship and not necessarily a quick fix.
Yeah, which is a challenge though, isn't it? Because we're in an instant gratification society, and people do come, you know, and let's face it, if you started playing squash or tennis now today without any experience, if you're basically quite mobile, I would hope that in 6 months, if you put your mind to it, you know, you're not going to be too afraid to stand up on Saturday and have a little knock around on the centre court of your local club. Jeepers creepers, they come to golf with that attitude, and 3 years down the line, they're still rolling up divots, you know, and nervous about playing in a Stableford on the first tee. So the challenges are extreme. So your soft skills, your ability to engage with the person, if that's how you wish to be, is hugely important. That's where I enjoy the fact of creating a pathway and accompanying them on that pathway, the ups and the downs.
Yeah, so you've got to be much more in tune with the person rather than just the game. Though it's much more about the person behind the swing, if you like. What about in terms of like technology and knowledge? Do you think golfers, we know in every country the level of knowledge of golfers is different, we know that. Do you think like where we work, Switzerland, Austria, Germany, France, do you think our customers expect the professionals to be knowledgeable about the latest trends? Do you think they expect our professionals to have the very latest gadgets and technology? Or do you think it's still in a position where they're not knowledgeable enough to know what's out there and what the latest things are?
Good question. I think they're very knowledgeable, that's for sure. With internet now, they are, if you are not up to speed, they are up to speed.
Yeah.
And if there's someone else who's up to speed and is in your environment, I would probably think they could be moving on, you know. And you've got to have that discussion with them and say, listen, that's perhaps, you know, you're not one of that 2 or 3% that perhaps needs to look at those numbers or to look at that so extremely. But I think you've got to be able to offer it to them and let them acknowledge that you know about
you have
all
a
that
basic knowledge of it.
But of course, sure. Yeah. And it's you know, as we see, it's a society full of certifications now, isn't it? So you what, level 1, level 2, level 3. That's okay. That means you've been there, but you've got to have that knowledge. I don't think it's vital to particularly have a wall full of
Every
certificates
certificate on the
behind you.
market, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But you've got to understand what you're doing. And I think it's only fair to question yourself if you don't. You know, it's you can choose. You can say, listen, I know about that, and I don't think it's necessary for you. But you have to then acknowledge perhaps the guy next to you, if he's got his TrackMan out and he's got a lot of people smiling and that, you know, oh, I'm hitting 3 up on this. Well, you know, you've almost missed the ball, but you are hitting 3 up on it. And, you know, it's a different. It's a, you know, you've got to look into your client base, haven't you, and fulfill the needs and wishes of your client base and the client base you wish to have to sustain your life that you wish to have.
Whether it's relevant for your client base, the different technologies.
That's right. I think so. It's I've got a personally. I have. We've got 7 professionals in Geneva, and there's a couple of chaps who are even older than I am, and they do their they do 9 holes, and they've never switched a TrackMan on, and they go around and they're fantastic with strategy, keep giving clients who are about 70 years of age, adapting to their skill set, creating a new strategy to help them enjoy the game. And I think that is equally as important as the other chap down the other end of the line, you know, teaching juniors and giving them all the data. So it's, you know, it's not a one shop fits all. So it's being able to adapt to the person that's in front of you on that specific journey that you've had a discussion about, and choosing to go together, that pathway. What are we going to do? What do we need to do? What would you like to do?
Yeah.
And let's go for that.
Just while we're on the point of technology, what do you think has been the most important technological advancement in for golf professionals in the last sort of 20 years? What would you say the standout technological advances?
Radar technology, isn't it? That I would have to put whether it's from Sam Putt Lab or whether it's TrackMan or FlightScope or anything that has been able to measure the ball and what the club's done. And I think that's took a lot of the guesswork out of it, Adam. And if you can stand there, you know, in the past, and that's not to take away, I mean, I still feel that having a good eye is incredibly important, and the way you can communicate your knowledge to the client is probably way more a good eye, communication, and the ability to get them to understand what you're trying to say is still more important than the data. But definitely the ability to justify your opinion by factual evidence, you know,
measuring it with factual evidence.
Yeah, sure, and say, listen, because of that, I think we should go down that path.
Okay. So if the younger Keith Marriott was just doing his apprenticeship, what golden nuggets would you give him to help him along his way? What experience would you want to pass on to the younger Keith Marriott today?
I guess there was that's a great one, because it sort of comes into I've always been super motivated, but then as you start where does your ego, and you know, you can be motivated, try to become good, and where does, you know, being humble and efficient and effective, and suddenly getting a bit too big for your boots, you know, and then suddenly all of a sudden, you know, you're, especially going back to what I was talking about, the aspect of waiting for a client to come to me and asking for a lesson. You know, I worked for Swiss Golf for 17 years, and I was teaching some good players, and I thought, wow, everyone should come and have a lesson. And then suddenly I think I lost that communication to that person. And so now if I could go back to that guy, and I was very much like that at the start, go and talk to people and keep talking to people, because this is such a tricky and difficult game, and you've got to have lots of conversations. And I'm just going to go back to Bill Cox in my apprenticeship. You know, the guy was charging a fortune. He was 72 years of age there. I think it was £100 a lesson back in a long time ago. So, and he was booked out solid. And the nuggets, and at that point you'd hit the balls, and then he would go and pick them up with, you know, and you'd go and pick them up. And the learning process was not in the time hitting the ball, but in the time when you weren't hitting the ball. Exactly. And
when you were walking and collecting.
Exactly. And listening to what he was saying. And that was when it's a little bit, I flipped that. That's perhaps why I'm enjoying these sort of conversations on Instagram, because you see people dropping their guard and letting a few of these golden nuggets that have taken years to develop, and they're just throwing them on the table for you to pick up. So that would be keep on engaging with your clients, and not just because exactly the soft skills.
Okay,
Keep educating yourself, but work on those soft skills, Adam.
That's really interesting, because it is when you're very busy and you've got a lot of, we've all experienced it. Your book is full, you're doing this, you're doing that, you get them, and you suddenly realize you haven't maybe seen someone for 6 weeks.
Yeah,
because you've been so busy, and then you go up and you find out, that they've been having a terrible time, or they, they decided to give up, or whatever, and you're like, well, where was I? I should have been the one to send them that message. That's difficult though, isn't it, Keith? When you're very busy, I mean, we all know what the seasons are like. To think of every single student and how are they doing and what are they doing, but a really important point, I think.
No, I agree with you also there, but and Adam, it's not really necessary, it's just perhaps walking past the table at lunch instead of walking the shortest way, because you want to, you want to get out of the restaurant as quick as possible, but walk the long way and just nod. And that nod is a connection and that kind of thing. Oh yeah, you see, he's thinking of me. And it's, very well, we all know, don't we? Those little inconsequential moments when someone says something to you that make you feel so good.
Yeah.
And that's what we can do, just walking through the rest. Hey, hi. It was part of our job 100 years ago. That was all part of being a head pro in the UK, wasn't it? Being part of the heart and soul of the club, which is where we have got to get back to, Adam.
Yeah.
PGA Pro should be the center of that golf environment.
Yeah, I mean, for all the educational reasons, etiquette, tradition, history, it all comes from that sort of pro being the center pillar of the golf club.
Absolutely. The knowledge of our youngest assistants probably outweighs the majority of, a lot of club committees, so it's fantastic. And that we've got to keep pushing that to the forefront, that people understand there's a source of knowledge, which if you tap into it, and then from us as professionals to make people aware in a pleasant manner that we have that knowledge, that we're passionate about this game.
Yeah.
And once you are passionate, that means you've been passionate for years and years and years, investing every moment of your day to thinking about it. And then we're educating them as well in factual sciences. So these young guys have got so much knowledge if we give it or we're asked in the correct manner.
This is true. Just as the president of the Swiss PGA, going now into the education quickly, how does the education program need to develop over the future in order to prepare its members for the future of coaching? We've just discussed how coaching has evolved in the last 10 or 20 years. How do you think the PGA has to adapt to the future of coaching?
I think we, as an association, we have to offer opportunities and benefits to our members. It's our obligation to offer the opportunities to develop as a professional. And that's so once you've got your apprenticeship, and then at the moment it's sort of your choice to go down that rabbit hole or this rabbit hole, or carry on there and do that. And we'd like to make the association able to offer a platform where you can actually go on and sort of, not everyone can take a day off to go and follow a further education day, but we'd like to have this like a learning lab, a platform where all of our learning modules are on there, where you can just, you can sit down and educate yourself in the evening on your computer. And so I think we have an obligation to stay up to date, but to give our members the opportunity, whatever time of the day, whatever their situation, whatever, because as you've said yourself 5 minutes ago, we're very, very busy in the season. And so we can't really keep updating. But now in the winter time, we have an opportunity. And some guys, as opposed to sitting down and watching a series of Netflix, you might want to run through an awful lot of great educational knowledge that's been out there during the season, but you didn't have that moment. So staying up to something that's come out of COVID, which is probably the most exciting thing for me, is the best in the world now are sharing their knowledge, Adam. It's wonderful. It's I've been contacting, for these free webinars, some of the world's best. Yeah, sure. And you're expecting to sort of get blocked by a management team and say no unless you, yeah, sure, we'll do it. Yeah, easy. And so there's this incredible new feeling of a good teacher is not trying to protect his knowledge. He wants to share it. And I think that's just such a great thing that's happening in the world of golf, and I assume in other sports. But this sharing of knowledge and the willingness to share their expertise is just fantastic. So from getting content is going to be quite simple, I think, to get the type of content that would be of use to the Swiss PGA Pro. That's going to be easier than it has ever been in the past. And then it's our challenge to how can we set up that content that the members can access it
24/7.
Take advantage of it and go backwards and forwards in a very light structured that's going to, but every PGA is up to that challenge at the moment, whether it's in digitalization of education.
Okay. As a Swiss PGA president, what are your expectations as an association of your golf professionals? So what's your expectation of me or of any other professional? What do you expect from us?
Being ambassadors to the game of golf. There's clearly representing the Swiss PGA in all of its the thing, that we have that growing the game and being personable and being a heart and soul of a golf club. But I think it goes beyond that, Adam. I think we all know this game, we love the game, the passion of the game, and the traditions of the game blending with the way that we're going forwards. I don't know whether you probably saw that, the R&A junior rules video, and I think the whole world now is embracing that we've got to change, we've got to become more inclusive. And if you're stuck in 1980, you're going to stay stuck in 1980. And if you're doing what you were doing in 1980, guess what? You're going to stay there. And so I think it's fantastic creating, but the PGA Pro, they do it so well, I think, with so many things in Switzerland. You've got the Swiss watches, Swiss chocolates, Swiss ski teachers. They do it very, very well. And I think we've got to get up there. And so when they look around and say, that's a Swiss PGA Pro, that it's a challenge, Adam, as we were talking earlier. We're all independent, we're all self-employed. And I think the job for the association is to create this feeling that we're in it all together. And if we do stay together, then our voice becomes significantly stronger. And if you have a great voice, you have more influence. And if you have more influence, that's it. And I think I just think it's be well mannered, be courteous, the
basics of being professional, professional conduct.
I think it's the skills that you'd like to have in life, isn't it? Being a certain humility, empathy, and I think one of the big things in golf is if you think you're good, there's always someone around the corner who can beat you. So get off your high horse.
This is true.
There's
always someone better.
There's always absolutely.
Just in terms of the business, obviously, like we discussed, a lot of golf professionals around the world are self-employed, and we've talked at length about coaching. But there's also a business aspect to our careers, the general running of a business, our accounts, our marketing, our promotion, the administration aspect. Do you think there's been enough education over the last 10, 15, 20 years available for golf pros in terms of to manage their business?
Great question. Definitely not, Adam. Definitely not. And I think that's where we've unfortunately we've sold ourselves short, haven't we? And it goes back to, we're so engaged, our workload is huge, normally very high, and so we don't really have that time. And I think as an association, it's important that we create these it's like what you're doing. Your webinars are fantastic, to make guys switch on the light, to understand that there are many ways of promoting their business other than just being that pleasant person around the club. You can, when you're at home, you can spend an hour doing your your internet or your social media updates, which creates a connection with you with an expanding database, and those things work. And yeah, I think that's a huge commitment. I used the word before, soft skills, didn't I? And
Yeah.
I think we're definitely going to point a lot of our emphasis towards. I know you had John Wallet on. He's in charge of further education, and John is very forward thinking in the idea that it's a consummate professional. It's not just one aspect. There's all those different things, and if you're weak in one, you know, it's just again trying to create that full spectrum of education for our members is huge. And
Would
definitely
part of that, Keith, be like if I need information about taxes, or I need to know the laws, that the Swiss PGA would be a place I could turn to, that everything
definitely
would be available?
Yeah, definitely. We've got now Patrick Rupen on the committee, who's actually a qualified lawyer. So there we're almost in-house advice, and he's always available and gives great advice. But I think like you've just sort of edged on there, I think we have to look into what are the issues of that self-employed pro. What are those problems? You know, the taxes, the whole financial aspect of it.
Contracts with the club and with the driving range.
100%. Yeah, I think with the going very briefly into the story of the situation that we've got in Switzerland, with unfortunately some of the guys having to pay to work. I think that's something also that we're now going to try to. The better we position ourselves within Switzerland, the better we are as an association. And it's not going to happen overnight, but we can wind that clock back when all of our pros are switched on and doing their best. And if you've just had that 6 o'clock lesson, your client doesn't see you dive into your car and eat a sandwich and drive out. You just do that little bit extra, that unpaid extra. Then we can start tipping that balance back to these guys are absolutely, as we are, the heart and soul of a golf club. Whether it's member retaining membership, creating new membership, fitting, or whatever these things, the multitude of aspects a pro can offer a golf club, we've got to get those in. But we've really got to get together and sort of sort that one through. I think that's
important.
Yeah.
Keith, just one last question. In your opinion, what do you think all top coaches have in common with one another? You've been in touch with hundreds of top coaches. You follow it yourself. You're a bit passionate about hearing from the top coaches. What do you think they all share?
Curiosity. They're curious. Humility. And once you get behind, they've all created a certain sales product, haven't they? An image that their management or that they sell. But once you get behind them, my goodness, they're no different to yourself and myself, passionate individuals about the game. And they do understand people. They have very good people skills. And I think, it really just doesn't finish when you've got their grip neat and tidy. It doesn't finish there. That's just, it's just the color of your car. It's not the motor, it's not the four wheels, it's not how you drive it, it's just the color. And so you've got to go so much deeper. And so they do go deep, and they engage tremendously with their pupil. They engage.
Keith, thank you for being on the show. It's been wonderful having you and listening to your insights. People at home, if you like the video, please share it. If you want to hear more content, please subscribe. We'll be back with more interviews and videos soon, helping you build a more successful coaching business. Keith, thank you for your time. Wonderful to talk to you. Great to get your insights.
And Adam, if I can just say thanks to you, because I really appreciate what you're doing, and I can only advise guys to get in contact. I see what you do out there, and you can really put a few of those guys who haven't perhaps got that savvy idea. They're saying, yeah, I like what they're saying, but how do I do that? How do I set up my website? How do I engage with my public at that driving range or my members? And that's something that I've seen you've been doing very well. And anyone out there who wants a bit of a heads up on how to boost their business, I think you're the man to go to, Adam. And thank you very much for setting that up for the guys out there. That's tremendous.
Appreciate that, Keith. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thanks
Thank
a
you very
lot.
much, Adam.
Take care.
Bye-bye.